So here we are. I'm sitting here on a lovely afternoon with Dr. Bhavana Nissima. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did, Marcus.
Thank you. Well, I have quite a few Indian friends, so hopefully I got it right. And it's really a delight to have you here, because when I heard you on the FuturePod X, I thought, here's a lady that I could really have a good conversation with. I just felt straight away that we have some shared experiences. Not only you've got a PhD, you said, in communication, and obviously you've spent some time in universities, but you found them stifling and a bit tough, right? So now you're in a much broader field, and one of the keys to your inquiry, I think, is the spiritual kind of dimension of your thinking. And of course, outside of India, especially, we would say India, spirituality, gurus everywhere, Krishna and Rama, and so we have these, what I would call, quite narrow, thin stereotypes of spirituality. But it's still, I go there quite regularly, a very deeply spiritually informed culture. It's a worldview that I just love in many respects. Not only do I like samosas and curries, but I also love singing kirtan and those kinds of things. So I really want to welcome you, Bhavana. Thank you for giving us some time. And I'm going to let you kick off the way that we can go with this conversation, because I should make it clear to people listening that Bhavana would never call herself a futurist, though she's working, I think, in cultural emergence and all the things that we might associate with the bigger picture of what future's foresight might be. Okay, so Bhavana, thank you, and you can introduce yourself and take us on the journey, and then I'll dive in with some questions at some time.
Okay. Marcus, first and foremost, is how delighted I am to speak with you and even to receive your invitation. And it's not simply because I want to be interviewed on a podcast, but more that I want to have a deep conversation with you.
Yeah.
You've come into my life almost as a blessing. I heard you first in the podcast too, FuturePod X. And there was something about your voice, even more than the content, that was just so, it was very different. And I was like, who's this person? And I had bought your book almost 2 days later after I listened to it. And one of the first pieces that happened along with the book is just reading the subtitle of it. I had read only New Humanism when I bought your book. And when I received it, I realized it was essays on education and spirituality. And I was like, okay, now what happened here? And I told you I had got the book and you shared a kirtan with me. And I was like, now this is really baffling me. These are things that I have hidden away in my life. And it's not something that I would easily speak, and definitely not in a professional context, and definitely not in an academic context. I hide these things. And you not only brought Kirtan, the idea of singing in love, but you also reframed it for me from the quiet, hidden, shadowy aspects of it to the absolute beauty of just singing in love, of the sacred. And I really cannot think of anything more beautiful that is possible. So, Marcus, thank you for this delightful moment.
That's great.
And so I am literally going to start with where your book starts, because I want to also track my life through this as much as I want to go into other pieces of how I look, because this is, after all, also for your listeners who are interested in futuring work. And I want to be sure that what I say also makes sense for them. So I'm going to use this book as well as my own journey and the purpose of the listeners around here to see if I can, and please help me, weave something that is coherent. I'm going to start from that. In my life, my mother was very deeply religious,
Mm.
but my dad was an atheist, and I have lived in between
Mm.
the two parts, sometimes absolutely loving our rituals and festivals, and sometimes absolutely being very angry about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then moving towards my dad's side. So there has been always this strange sense in which I have grown up. And by my teens, I was a massive rebel, and I declared myself anti-mother and pro-father. So
Yeah.
I was a hardcore atheist, if anything. Uh, when I was 13 years old, my mother, because there was some particular state of the sky, I don't know if it was a no moon night or some constellation in the sky, and my mother wanted to go to Kalighat temple. Kalighat temple is a predominant temple dedicated to goddess Kali in Calcutta, which is where I grew up. And she wanted to go there to make her offerings. And she didn't want to go alone. And so she dragged me along, a 13-year-old rebel who was more interested in what kurta she was wearing and how she did her hair than for any religious purpose. And I complained, I sulked, and I was like, I don't want to be standing in this long queue. And I complained all the way through. I think she had a hard time with me,
Poor
but she
mum.
didn't want to go alone. So there I was. And I had finished complaining, and then we were very close to the temple walls. And I touched the temple wall, and what followed next was something that was unexpected. I was thrown off my body, and I felt as if I had reached the peak of the temple. And it must have been just a moment or two moments experience, but in that 2 moments, I felt as if my form had dissolved completely, and there was no difference between. I couldn't even say I was Bhavana anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
had the my presence, my form had dissolved into. There was the light of that, the night, the very dim light of the night, the temple peak, the gopuram of the temple, and the things around, as if there was no difference.
Yeah.
And there were an extraordinary bliss, an extraordinary experience of bliss. In the 2 moments or whatever happened, I came back. I was no longer the same person. I was bawling and crying, and I needed to see mother. And now Kali was no longer just Kali. She was my mother.
Mm.
And I really desperately needed to see her. And when I finally got into the main sanctum sanctorum of Kali, and I grasped her, I just wouldn't let go because it was overwhelming sense of connection where nothing else made sense. If I am here today, struck and wanting to speak about this that you have written, it is also because of that 2 moments and a yearning that it left in my entire lifetime.
Mm.
A yearning that has been very hard to articulate. Because I've spent my life sometimes thinking it was a mystical experience, sometimes thinking must be complete hallucination because I was dehydrated, to now a more matured experience and an understanding that it's not about why or what happened,
Mm. Mm.
but it is that 2 moments experience, whatever it was,
Yeah.
taught me something, showed me and had me glimpse something that's never ever been fulfilled through any other part of any life path I have taken.
Yeah.
And I have taken multiple life paths to kind of explore, okay, what is this? Maybe, that's, see, everybody is doing that, so I must be going in that
Right. Yeah.
direction. Until you realize that even when I have been at systems thinking, and it's not been because I wanted to have that intellectual ability, but I just, what is it that has been so deeply in my body, that I have known in my body, that I am searching for in all these modalities? Am I seeking some kind of a justification, an explanation, some kind of a validation of that?
Mm.
Or is it that I have been searching for a vocabulary to speak to what I have known deeply my entire
Mm-hmm.
life? So I come here in this moment also recognizing that my futuring, the rest of my life
Yeah.
from that 13-year-old to this, has been that deep yearning to return home. And I want to read something that you have written, if I have your permission to
You
do
have my
that.
permission. This is your show, Bhavana.
Yeah, no, but it's ours, so it's
It's our show,
your.
I know, but I'm drinking this up. It's just beautiful. That story is
It's
very profound, and it reminds me of a story that I could tell you later about my experience as a 12-year-old or something. Yeah.
okay.
Mm.
In this process, you write in page 30 of New Humanism, Yearning and Becoming, essays on education and spirituality, which has been published just this year.
Mm-hmm.
And on page 30, you write, in this process, each unit being over lifetime finds their way back slowly but surely to the supreme hub of existence. The dynamism of this movement is this yearning,
Mm.
a longing to return home
Mm.
to the cosmic source of our being. Now, this may sound very theoretical, but when we look at culture, culture dynamics, the inequalities in this world, the pressure on human consciousness from the environment, we can see all as goads to the evolution of consciousness.
Mm.
This is from your work in BASI 2017B. It's profound, and that I should have found you this year. I mean, for me, it has also been a call. It's the same force of the cosmos, also telling Bhavna, wait, you need to be reclaiming and noticing some things that you have not considered. And for me, that's been a point for me to recognize what were the various pieces that I had put in place to that yearning to return home. When I heard the word future thinking, it's been sitting very uncomfortably with me,
Mm-hmm.
not because of the word future, but of the word thinking.
Thinking, yes.
Because it's the thinking becomes such an intellectual, abstracted effort
Yeah.
from a word that you had used with me a little while ago, a culturalist, a culturaling kind of an approach to future. I
Mm-hmm.
would say future culturing is what I can speak of today.
Beautiful.
Is what were those natural pieces that I had access, not because I did it any of this
Mm-hmm.
consciously. So I do not come to your listeners or your viewers with any kind of expertise, but I come as a very lay devotee of the sacred and a call I am trying to understand as I speak to you today, Marcus.
Yes.
And one of those pieces has been very much for me, has been karma. And when we use the word karma, it's got such a lot of messy stuff around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Back in 2005, 2006, I'd proposed in my field of communication, and my background in my PhD was communication, a karmic theory of communication.
Mm.
And by that, and it was based on other people's work. So Yoshitaka Miki, who proposed an Asia-centric approach to
Yeah.
communication. He had written a little bit about communication. Guo Ming Cheng, who had also was an intercultural communication scholar based out of China, he had also written about communication. And we were all meeting together. So it's not my singular piece. I was coming from one perspective. Yoshitaka Miki coming from a Japanese perspective. Guo Ming Cheng was coming from a Chinese, but we were all meeting in the
Yeah.
same ground. We saw that communication was a place to receive and give debts.
Yeah.
And by that, and as I explore this term, this understanding of karma, not as one more religious term, but as a lived systemic approach on how futuring is happening at the level of the individual who is evolving. This is what I am discovering. And Marcus, please stop me if I'm just
No, no,
getting
I'm drinking
incoherent
all
and
this up.
stupid because I want to tell my viewers, I'm grappling with it. I am not speaking to you as an expert. I am trying to make sense of
Yeah.
what I'm beginning to make sense of. And a lot of things are naturally coming into place.
Mm.
Uh, w-
It,
s- yes, please.
I'll add something there. There's a few things that you've said along the way. Hopefully, I'll remember, or at least some of them, because there have been let's say last week, I spent the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and what was called the Oceania Futures and Foresight Symposium. We had 60 people there from all over Oceania, so Australia, New Zealand, and the Asia, well, not the Asia so much, but Pacific. And there were a few others as well. But it was a tribe. It was like we were affirming something that I was calling future bathing, like forest bathing. It was like future bathing. And it was a lovely, and it was definitely a strong cultural experience. And the Indigenous lady, Auntie Denise Proud, who spoke at the beginning, said that she had a problem with the concept of futures thinking because for her it was futures feeling.
Ah, so beautiful.
and and
So
and I went,
beautiful.
oh, because it's so true that we can rationalize, we can come up with words and clever concepts, and we need these things that at some level. I do not doubt that, but we need the feeling first.
Right,
So when I write from my feeling space,
right,
even though it's academic sometimes and not poetry other times. But, for me, what you're talking about is futures feeling
right.
in that deep, and it's cultural.
Yes.
And the other thing is that, and you touched on this when you mentioned to me before this, we started recording, you were talking about having your village. So last week, that conference was like going into my village.
Right.
We didn't know one another all, but
Yes.
certainly there was a sense of mutuality,
Right.
shared yearning.
Yes.
We did lots of creative things. We had some more academic things, but a lot of it was culture building.
Right.
And to me, that's really profound. And the last thing before I hand the talking stick back to you is that the sense of being an individual has been imposed upon us,
Yes.
and that we are cultural beings,
Mm-hmm.
and that Pan-Asian quality that you were talking about with your karmic theory of communication, that links up with other shared values that are not carried by individuals, but emerge collectively. And I love to talk about the fact that we are like, me as an individual, you as an individual, we're like the efflorescences of mycelia that are growing underneath the ground, like a mushroom. The mushroom
Yes.
actually is underneath the ground mostly. There's just this little thing pops up. And that therefore we are all sharing in a cultural experience that is an emergent consciousness field.
Right.
And to me, communication is about consciousness,
Yes.
but consciousness also requires communication. But communication doesn't just happen with me and my words or you and your words. That expansive feeling, that the way you're talking, it's like you were saying about my voice. Well, your voice carries that too. It's carrying a yearning quality, an expansive quality, and it's an inquiry, it's a curiosity, and it's a sensing of something beyond. And I think all of that is kind of like if I have to say my futures work, that's the sort of work I like to do. I like to dance and sing, the kirtan you mentioned, and so on. It's all part of a broader palette of communication. I'll hand the stick back to you.
Uh, well, I have to stop for a moment because I'm feeling also all that
Mm.
you're saying, and I want to drift and just continue with what you have to say. And I'm remembering you had something to share when you were 12 years
Oh,
old.
yes.
And I'm very curious what is there. And I just wanted to add this feeling word is such a beautiful thing, futures feeling.
Mm.
Very interestingly, currently I am studying Alfred Whitehead.
Oh, yes.
And Alfred Whitehead talks about not experience as, the structure of experience, but feeling,
Mm.
thoughts as feeling, and that it's at that level of feeling that we are making the choice. We are examining the values of this moment based on which something else is going to emerge.
Yeah.
And so he sent us feeling in the process thinking. And I was like, wow, just it's all coming together in a very interesting moment.
Mm.
So tell me, Marcus, about your.
Okay. Um, I've just got to keep an eye on the time.
Oh, okay, yes.
Sorry, we can have a longer conversation and do this much more justice, I think, at another time. But as a 12-year-old, I have to say, very religious in many respects. I had this sense of the cultural beauty of faith systems, plural. But I was at this time in a Catholic school, and every week we had to go to Mass,
Mhm.
and we'd all troop off to Mass, line up, and it was a boys' school, all these smelly pubescent boys sitting there. And there we were in going through the Mass, and the priest up the front was talking about God and angels or whatever, and we were all kneeling, and at one point I was listening, and then suddenly, just like you, I was out of my body, up into wherever, or into wherever, it's hard to say, but it was a void. It was an empty space of stillness. And the only consciousness that I had was the kind of pretty picture that the priest was telling was false. It was not true at all, but there was this other thing that was there,
Right,
kind of waiting. And then
right,
I was back into my body and I was, but that was it. So I didn't do I didn't have it kind of as an emotional intense experience as yours, but it was a very intense experience because it's been with me ever
right.
since. So
Yes,
that was my thing, and it was interesting that we were so similar in age, and
yes,
that the experience was what I would call the spiritual experience, whatever that means.
yes.
But it has underwritten all aspects of my curiosity in life, my experiences of life, and so on. So that was my little story, Bhavana. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Marcus. And I'm now going in so many different directions in my head, but I'm going to come back to the piece that we have brought in, these moments that become our yearning.
Mm.
And for some of us, like you and me, we had these experiences that they tell us something more that is not there in the usual everyday. It tells us that is what the Kena Upanishads would say is the mind of the mind, the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear.
Mm-hmm.
There is
Mm-hmm.
this one more layer of something else that is beckoning. It's that pull.
Yeah.
It's this yearning is not just me directed. It's a pull, and that you want to return to. And I've spent my life being very frustrated that
Yeah.
I've never been
Yeah.
even close to that particular moment. And to that point is the various pieces that has come to me as reminders. And one of that, as I said, is karma. And
Mm.
karma, when I was growing up, I had a lot of I looked down on that concept quite a bit.
Mm.
And then later I re-examined it. And then I have had evolution in my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I understand it as in a very different way. Understand it as, so there are three kinds of karma. The one is the sanchita karma, as all the consequences of various experiences and how we acted in different lifetimes
Mm-hmm.
gathered. So it's a gathered consequence of everything across multiple lifetimes. And it's very interesting to notice this, not in the sense of the current legal, social individual that we have come to
Yeah.
understand, but that the sense of the individual has always been aham brahmasmi, so that you are always even also the cockroach and the sparrow and the wallaby outside your home, and so
Mm.
you have been gathering across your various forms into this form as if
Yeah.
in some way. And then there is this ripening of certain aspects of it. It's known as the prarabdha karma, the ripening of some of those karmas happening in this moment, which leads to an emergence of this moment. This is the what has now sprouted, now what has fruited. And this fruiting is a very interesting piece because right from a very young age, I have had the sense when something fruits, that is, something is become the moment's event, that you don't react to it. In some form or the other, that message has come. You don't react to this moment. That is an emergence that has come from the consequences of many events.
Mm.
Rather, you ask yourself, what is the way of dharma?
Dharma. Yes.
What is the way of dharma? And dharma is not simply following precepts of whatever religious instructions. Dharma is also not what I want to have happen for myself, but dharma is holding my immediate relationship with the larger relationship. And the larger relationship is not only for all forms that is there, but it is across time. So
Yes.
dharma is this beautiful sense of across time, across people, across life forms, or
Mm.
across all forms. Even the stone and the mountains are included in this process. With this moment that I am in a relationship with you or with my people around here, it's just
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
together. It's that holding to what is an agami karma. An agami karma is your future karma. It is
Mm.
how am I responding in this moment that is going to create the
Yeah.
future conditions. And this particular focus on noticing how I am responding to this event,
Mm-hmm.
I have found it to be very, very powerful because I am not trying to fix it. I have been culturally informed in different ways, not to react or fix it or do something about it in the usual do something about it, which is usually at the symptom level, which is usually at the level
Yep.
of, the current conditions, but to stop, accept this moment as unfixable. It's consequence. I got to accept it. But from this moment, how do I respond in a way that the old patterns don't continue?
That's right. So we're breaking our sanskaras in a sense, that sanskaric
Yeah.
load that will condition us because we're born
Exactly.
into a conditioned moment. And
Yes.
to me, Dharma also contains that yearning. The yearning is the fuel
Yes.
for Dharma in a sense,
Absolutely.
at a spiritual
Exactly.
sense.
So
Yeah.
beautifully said. So at some point, I had a client, and she was in a lot of pain about her workplace.
Mm.
And I was just listening in, figuring out what frames, da 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 da, and then suddenly she stopped. She stopped, and then she looked up. She just, put her hand in this prayer position. I don't know what debts am I fulfilling in this moment. Please forgive me. And then she stopped.
Mm.
That's it. Stop. End. Done.
Yeah, like that.
And I just sat there and I recognized what a powerful way of not bringing in more drama into the world, but at this beautiful moment of acceptance, and then asking yourself, okay, how do I need to respond in a different way?
Mm.
And as I look at our world with all kinds of vitiation or that deep inflammation that is there in all aspects of our life, I keep asking myself, okay, so when we are even talking about limits to growth, when we are talking about any form of other pieces. For example, when Nate Higgins keeps talking about you can't stop oil by saying simply stop oil, it has to be all the oil industries at the same time. And you have to do it in a way that the economy does not devastate. It's holding all of those pieces,
Yes.
right? You got to do it together. Your economy cannot devastate. All the industries has to be
Hmm.
reduced, and we have to find a creative approach to this moment. I keep thinking it cannot be done just at the collective thinking level.
No.
It has to be, as you have also said, it has to be at this collective culturing feeling level.
Mm.
It is here in this moment. If I am in charge of a place, that I can hold back this desire to just go with what is here and to bring in clarity. What
Yeah.
do I do now? That makes a difference. That will make a difference.
That's beautiful, Bhavana. That's beautiful. And it's a great place that we have to end at, simply because I've got a 3 o'clock other appointment where I have to actually, I'm giving a talk online. But I think what we've touched on here are the seeds of an ongoing conversation.
Yes, Marcus.
And I would be very happy to, in, I don't know, in the next few weeks or whenever the time is right, for us to actually have a longer time. These talks have been relatively short, 20, 25 minutes, so that they're bite-sized. But, we're whetting the appetite here, and you've certainly whet my appetite. I think I'm very interested to follow your thinking further. I've worked a lot with certain Sanskrit concepts, particularly from Tantra, which really have helped me with my theorizing, you might say, of the predicaments and processes and so on, and also the beauties of being human. We mustn't forget, for all the difficulties that, as a species and as a planet we're facing, that there is something else going on. There is
Yes.
something else going on, and that's you might say, it's the cosmic kirtan that's going on behind everything. And of course, we are just actors, a little, wherever we are. So I want to thank
Absolutely,
you.
Marcus.
Is there anything I always like to say? You can have the last word. What would you offer to the listener before we end here?
Um, to your listeners and to your viewers, Marcus, here is what I would like to bring to attention is to do more of this feeling work of the moment. That
Mm.
futuring is such a personal, it's such an intimate kind of an act. It is not so much about time future, but this future is happening in this moment. It is being shaped and it is being formed. And how we attend to it is going to make all the difference in what is to happen tomorrow. I thank you, Marcus, for bringing me over here. It has helped me, and I thank your viewers and your listeners for listening to me. And any feedback from any of you who are listening, it'll help me to think further, because I'm in the process of, as he said beautifully, toying my thinking too. And not just my thinking, my experience, my understanding. It requires multiple evolutions. So any feedback will also help me. So thank you, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Bhavana. And we will talk again.